Hi everybody, this is Bisto on behalf of Learn Medics. Welcome to lecture series of cell pathophysiology. In this module, we are dealing with cell adaptations. Cell is the first or primitive component of body that react to any kind of stress. Cell has the ability to adapt to any of the stress and it maintain the normal body functions, means the homeostasis, and the all pathological process begins from the cell. The stress leads to cell adaptation, and the prolonged stress that can be tolerated by the cell adaptation lead to cell injury or damage, and it may further lead to cell death. Cellular responses to stress. Stresses are of two types. It may be pathological or physiological. The classical examples of pathological are ischemia, heat, or any kind of infection. And in case of physiological, the menstrual cycle and pregnancy period in female are the most common physiological kind of stressors. And these kinds of stresses lead to adaptation by the cells. The adaptation may be reversible changes that in response to the stress. If a stress is removed, the cells can retain its normal process, like it can be back to its normal from the adaptation. But the prolonged adaptation may lead to the injury. Injury may be reversible or irreversible. When irreversible injury occur, it further again lead to cellular death. It is why apoptosis or necrosis. Apoptosis is in programmed way and necrosis is in unprogrammed way. So in this module, we are going to deal with the all the basic concepts of the adaptations. There are five main types of adaptations. The first one is hypertrophy. Hypertrophy means it increases in cell size. The size of the cell increases. And next one is hyperplasia. It increases in cell number. Third one is atrophy, which is in contrast with the hypertrophy. It is decrease in cell size. And the fourth one is metaplasia, which are another method, means it changes in phenotype of tissue bed. And the last one is dysplasia. It loses the normal tissue architecture. Dysplasia usually preceded by hyperplasia or metaplasia. That is, prolonged hyperplasia or metaplasia may lead to dysplasia of the cell. So we are going to deal with the all the further studies of hypertrophy, hyperplasia, atrophy, metaplasia, and dysplasia. Here we can see the normal cell, which is converted to hypertrophy. Hypertrophy means the increased cell size. Here we can see the increased cell size. And hyperplasia means the number of the cells increased from the normal cell to hyperplastic cell. And we can see the atrophy means decrease in the cell size. Here there's decrease in cell size. And we can see the dysplasia over here, usually come after or proceeds after the hyperplasia or metaplasia. First one, we are going to deal with the hypertrophy. As also already mentioned, hypertrophy means increase in cell size. It means that it have more proteins and filaments in the cell. Like it may occur with hyperplasia, and there is two types. As already mentioned, stresses may have two types. So the hypertrophy also occurs by two methods. Means it's in physiological states or pathological state. First, we are going to deal with the physiological state. The classical examples of hypertrophy occur in physiological state is muscle tissues. In bodybuilders, due to more workload, hypertrophy occurs. That means increase in cell size. As we can see a gym body guy who have increased body mass, it is due to the increased muscle cell size, means hypertrophy of the muscle tissues. And uterus in pregnancy, it is a hormone driven. You can also see the increased hypertrophy or increased cell size in uterus. And the second one is pathological state. The classical examples of the pathological state is left ventricular hypertrophy. It means it is due to the increased BP or work or hypertension. It increase the afterload leads to hypertrophy. The afterload leads to the hypertrophy of the left ventricle. And the second one is hyperplasia. It is the increase in cell number. It is adapted by the cell is adapted by which it increases its own cell numbers, and due to it is due to the excess hormone stimulation, often accompanied with hypertrophy. Um, and in two ways, like first one is physiological hyperplasia. Physiological hyperplasia, the classical example is breast growth at puberty. Like at puberty, hyperplasia and hypertrophy of glandular epithelial cells of breast tissue, which increases the cell number. And the second one is liver regeneration. Like we know that partial liver donation can be given. So in the partial liver donation, the liver grows back into its full size. That hyperplasia of remaining hepatocytes occur. And the last one is bone marrow hyperplasia of red blood cells, red blood cell precursors during anemia. In anemia, we know that there is the declination of RBCs, but as a physiological condition, there is hyperplasia of RBC precursors, which increases the red blood cells. Okay. Then next one is the pathological states of hyperplasia. It includes the endometrial hyperplasia. It is a hormone-driven hyperplasia. The endometrium is grown due to increased estrogen. Second one is prostatic hyperplasia. In males, excessive response to androgens, hormone-driven. It's also a hormone-driven hyperplasia. We know that malignancy occur due to any mutation in the gene. Like for hyperplasia, to increase the cell number, we need increased cell division. Lots of cell need to be divided during the heavy cell division. There's a chance of error in DNA copying. Like lots of the cell are divided, and there is a chance of error in DNA copying, which leads to the error in cell cycle, and it leads to the uncontrollable growth. That means malignancy. So the increased cell division, due to the increased cell division, there is an maybe a chance of error occurring DNA copying, which lead to the malignancy. These all are about the pathological hyperplasia. So till now we discuss about the hypertrophy and hyperplasia. We know that hypertrophy is increase in cell size, while hyperplasia means increase in cell number. The hypertrophy occur in the permanent or non-dividing cells, because in hypertrophy there is no increase in cell number, it's only increase in the cell size. Okay, the cells are in permanent G0 state of cell cycle, so it can't be divided further. Example means myocytes in heart, skeletal muscle cells, nerves, etc. They are all at the permanent G0 state of cell cycle, so they can't divide further, but they can increase the cell size. Means they can increase its more proteins, filaments, etc. synthesized in the cells are very high. And what about hyperplasia? In the conditions of hyperplasia, cells are capable of growth or division. Means it is occur in majority of the stem cells or epithelial cells. Means epithelial cells have stem cells. Example in the case of GIT, breast duct and skin. Like GIT, a number of cells can are in GITs, the number of cells are dividing and multiplying. Also in skin cells, lot of dead cells are going and new cells are appearing in our skin. We know that, and it may leads to dysplasia or cancer. That's all about the hypertrophy and hyperplasia. Till we discuss everything on hypertrophy and hyperplasia. Okay, now we are going to the atrophy. Atrophy means it is contrast to the hypertrophy, means it is decrease in cell size or number of cells, and due to the decrease in cell size leads to the decrease in size of organ or tissue. The physiological atrophy, it's common in embryonic structures. That is, many of these structures present in the embryonical stage is not present after the birth or in the adult stage. So it is a major thing, that atrophy of the embryonic structures. It is the embryonic cells many of the embryonic cells are undergoing a programmed type of cell death, which is called apoptosis. Like I have another video lecture on the apoptosis in detail. Okay, then second one is uterus shrinking after uterus shrinking after childbirth. We know that uterus size increasing, it's due to hyperplasia, and after the childbirth, uterus need to be uh, back to its normal condition. We know that it's a reversible, like cell this stress, after this stress is gone, the cells are capable of reverse to its normal condition. So uterus is shrinking after childbirth. And third one is shrinking of breast and uterus at menopause due to fall in hormone. These all are the classical examples of physiological atrophy. And the pathological atrophy means in this condition we have several examples, like unused skeletal muscle. If a person is bedridden for several months after a trauma or injury, she or he may have some atrophy in skeletal muscles. And in the case of cachexia is a condition of pure nutrition. That type of conditions also weakness and wasting of body. And next one is decreased blood supply. It is senile atrophy of brain. It is to be known that the atherosclerosis of brain in the elderly people, that brain gets smaller, and it is called senile atrophy of brain. It is due to the decreased supply, which also in pathological atrophy. And the loss of intervention in several neuromuscular disorders. Okay, the fourth type is metaplasia. Metaplasia means it's the change in cell type to adapt to stress. That is, the normal cell is changes to another type of cell to adapt with the stress. Okay, the newly formed cells is capable of withstand the stress. It is more common in epithelial cells. For example, the classical examples of metaplasia is squamous epithelial cells become columnar epithelium, or vice versa. Means squamous epithelial cells become columnar epithelium, or columnar epithelium becomes squamous epithelium. It is potentially reversible, but it have a major problem. It may lead to the malignancy or dysplasia. The pathological conditions, the golden example or the classical examples of pathological condition is the respiratory tract in smokers. Normally in the respiratory tract we have the columnar epithelium cells in trachea or bronchi, which have cilia, and which secrete lots of mucus to remove various infections, various dust particles from the trachea or bronchi. But due to the smoking, the columnar epithelium changes to squamous epithelium, which is more durable than columnar epithelium. But in squamous epithelium, the cilia is absent and is more vulnerable to several infections, like squamous cell carcinoma in smokers may occur. It is due to the metaplasia of upper respiratory tract in smokers. Here we can see the columnar cell, normal columnar cell, which due to the external stimuli leads to the metaplastic squamous cell, and this squamous metaplasia occur. Okay. This is common seen in the respiratory tract of smokers. Another main pathological conditions are the Barrett's esophagus. In this condition, gastric acid get into esophagus, and the normal stratified squamous epithelium changes to columnar epithelium that present in the small intestine, exactly in the ileum. As of ileum, the normal stratified squamous epithelium changes to columnar epithelium. And vitamin deficiency have a major role in the vitamin deficiency have a major role in the metaplasia. because vitamin A is important for maintaining the epithelial cells. It is more important in maintaining the epithelial cells. So vitamin A deficiency may occur. A deficiency may lead to the epithelial metaplasia due to the keratinization. It is common in the upper respiratory tract, as we already mentioned that epithelial metaplasia occur, that is normal epithelium replaced by keratinizing squamous epithelium. It's already mentioned before. It is also another under the smokers, and also the vitamin. It is due to the vitamin A deficiency, and which is prone to several infections. And next one is the dry eyes or xerophthalmia. The normal epithelium in eye secretes more mucus, and due to the vitamin A deficiency, keratinized epithelium is replaced by keratinized epithelium, and cells do not secrete mucus, and it leads to the dry eyes. And the last one is dysplasia. It is disordered proliferation, like it loses the normal tissue architecture, and it is non-neoplastic but can be precancerous. Like dysplasia is precancerous, it may lead to the cancer, but still it's non-neoplastic. Mild dysplasia resolved but severe may lead to cancer. Commonly occurs in majority of epithelial cells, as I mentioned above, usually preceded by hyperplasia. Normal cell may lead to hyperplasia or metaplasia, and then prolonged hyperplasia or metaplasia lead to dysplasia. Okay, that's all about all the cellular adaptations. And thank you for watching the video. Thank you.